The illusion of happiness through relationships, decolonizing mindsets for a flourishing culture. Greetings, seekers of truth and advocates of free will. It's a peculiar narrative, isn't it? The prevailing rhetoric that assures us all happiness can only be located within the four walls of a familial setting, either by biological connection or romantic entanglement. This notion, intricately woven into our collective psyches, compels many to seek relationships and procreation as if they were the sole waypoints on the journey toward fulfillment. But what if this narrative is not just misleading, but also a vestigial relic of imperialistic control? Allow me to usher you through a journey, deconstructing perceived notions, shattering socially programmed illusions, and reclaiming your inherent sovereignty to live as you see fit. The origin of breeder culture, the British colonization of India as a case study. The subtle erosion of sociocultural diversity. The robust tapestry of life paths that flourished in the pre-colonial societies is neither accidental nor trivial. It is a testament to the vibrant cultural paradigms that underscored human existence. In a space like India, we witnessed the coalescence of warriors, sages, artisans, and householders, each contributing unique threads to the nation's vivid social fabric. Yet when we examine the subcontinent's historical trajectory under British rule, we observe an insidious transformation, a monochromatization of society wherein the manifold threads were unwound to serve the British agenda. Let's delve into the specifics of how Britain's colonial machinations worked to enforce a breeder culture, effectively erasing India's nuanced social identities. At the core of the British colonial agenda in India was a resource-driven strategy. Like miners sifting for gold, the British Empire sought to extract the maximum utility from India's native populace. However, to do so, it became necessary to truncate the myriad roles people traditionally played and streamline them into functions that directly benefited the colonial economy. Consequently, the societal emphasis shifted from spiritual and intellectual pursuits to the act of procreation, transforming Indians into literal factories for future laborers, soldiers, and taxpayers. The British furthered their interests through a crafty policy of divide and rule by delineating the Indian population into rigid compartments, often exaggerating religious, linguistic, and caste differences. They weakened the social fabric, making it easier to implant their homogenizing agenda. In doing so, they discouraged non-traditional lifestyles and roles that might question or resist their authority. As a result, monastic lives, artistry, scholarship, and other non-breeder roles became marginalized, their societal value deflated like punctured balloons. Another dimension to consider is the introduction of Section 377, the British colonial law that criminalized homosexuality. This legal provision was not just an attack on sexual orientation, but a brazen attempt to enforce reproductive roles on the Indian populace. By doing so, the British aimed to suppress any form of non-heteronormative living, thereby funneling human lives into neatly confined reproductive pathways that could be easily controlled and exploited. The British educational system, imported to civilize the Indian masses, was yet another instrument to propound the breeder culture. Curricula were designed to lionize Western norms and denigrate Indian traditions. In these schools, children were taught the virtues of the nuclear family, reinforcing the notion that individual worth is tethered to one's ability to procreate and nurture a family, thereby perpetuating the imperial agenda. Figures who once held significant influence in society, philosophers, yogis, warriors, were reduced to footnotes, their erstwhile importance overshadowed by the colonial focus on breeders. The Bhakti and Sufi saints, the poets and scholars, the defenders of Dharma, all relegated to their corners of cultural obscurity. In essence, the social luminaries dimmed, their lights flickering out in the dark corridor of colonial exploitation. The enduring aftermath. Today, India still wrestles with the long-tail effects of this cultural metamorphosis, a change in social psyche implanted by the British Empire. Our collective understanding of human value, life, purpose, and societal roles remains significantly influenced by the imposed breeder culture. Undoing this deeply rooted conditioning is neither quick nor straightforward. It requires an untangling of the social fabric woven over centuries of colonial rule. But the road to recovery is etched in re-education and enlightenment, through reviving our ancient philosophies and reviving our indigenous ways of life. Let us make no mistake, reclaiming our multifaceted social identities is a potent act of decolonization. Only by unspooling the monochrome thread can we restore the vivid tapestry that was once our natural state, thereby moving closer to a genuinely autonomous and diversified society. Unmasking the idealized relationship narrative. Both Eastern and Western narratives, deeply influenced by colonial undertones, have enshrined the institution of romantic relationships as the ultimate destination for human happiness. In this landscape, Hollywood and Bollywood serve as cultural pulpits, sermonizing the gospel of eternal love. However, what these storylines often exclude is the subterranean toxicity that lurks beneath the surface of many relationships. The dynamics are more intricate than the simple happily ever after we've been conditioned to yearn for. One of the most concealed aspects of this conversation is the biochemical dance that occurs when people engage in romantic relationships. Hormones like oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin flood the system, acting as both catalysts and sustenance for emotional bonds. These hormones are adept at providing a temporary relief from existential angst and internal voids, serving as a sort of emotional anesthetic. However, while they may alleviate the symptoms, they seldom treat the root cause, the emotional and psychological complexities that each individual brings into the relationship. Shadow work deferred, escaping self-examination. In Jungian psychology, confronting the shadow self is an essential part of holistic personal development. This involves grappling with the less flattering parts of one's personality, anger, jealousy, insecurity, and other latent emotions. Many relationships function as elaborate avoidance mechanisms, offering participants an excuse to sidestep the difficult yet crucial process of shadow work. The relationship then becomes a theater of projection, where each person magnifies their virtues and externalizes their flaws onto the other, thereby delaying essential internal reckoning. The resultant relationships, born from a lack of self-awareness and personal growth, can quickly spiral into a cycle of codependency and emotional exploitation. Each person begins to source their self-worth and validation primarily from the relationship itself, thus reinforcing toxic behavioral patterns. This symbiotic network of emotional crutches may appear stable, but it is intrinsically flawed. It serves as a breeding ground for passive-aggressive dynamics, unfulfilled expectations, and suppressed resentments, all festering under the misleading guise of love and commitment. The narrative that one's life gains fulfillment and completeness through a relationship is an insidious myth. This message implies that a solitary individual is somehow less than whole, requiring an external entity to achieve a state of completeness. This ideology discourages people from sourcing their happiness from within, which is an internal journey that each individual must undertake, irrespective of their relationship status. The peril lies in believing that another human being can absolve us of our internal struggles, thereby outsourcing our emotional wellness. The route to healthier relationships, be they platonic, familial, or romantic, begins with the individual. Authentic bonds can only be formed when each participant is a whole, self-aware entity capable of emotional autonomy. As a society, it is crucial to dismantle the ingrained notion that relationships are the universal solution for loneliness, self-esteem issues, or existential anxiety. Only by doing so can we break free from the traps of toxic relationships and lay the foundation for partnerships that are genuinely rooted in mutual respect, understanding, and love. In this way, we challenge not only the personal limitations we set for ourselves, but also the colonial legacies that have long infiltrated our cultural understanding of relationships. To truly free ourselves, we must rewrite the narrative, embracing the diversity of human experience and the complexities of our inner worlds. Decolonizing the psyche, the first frontier. The call for autonomy transcends beyond a simple endorsement for individualism. It is a clarion call for psychological emancipation. The colonial vestiges within our collective consciousness perpetuate the notion that personal growth is linear and confined to family and reproduction. This psychological yoke stifles our potential, compelling us to live in grayscale when a spectrum of possibilities awaits us. By shedding this colonial mindset, we liberate ourselves to explore the boundless avenues of human endeavor, just as our ancestors did in eras when the human spirit soared unencumbered. Once this cognitive decolonization takes place, what unfurls before us is a myriad of life paths, each teeming with its unique form of enrichment and fulfillment. One could opt for artistic creation, becoming a conduit through which the intangible becomes tangible, expressing the inexpressible. Or perhaps the analytical rigor of scientific inquiry appeals to you, offering a structured framework to interrogate the natural world and contribute to the arsenal of human knowledge. Governance, too, is a noble path, providing an avenue for impactful societal change by sculpting policies that mold the future. The call to serve humanity is a compelling option for many. The humanitarian path is not just an emotional salve, but a contribution to the scaffolding of a just society. Through social work, advocacy, or community development, individuals can impact lives on both micro and macro levels, effecting change that reverberates through generations. When we talk about inner work, introspection, mindfulness, shadow work, self-examination, we're not just engaging in self-improvement, but in social activism. By examining and rewriting our inner narrative, we're also contributing to a larger cultural script that can liberate others. Your personal reclamation is, in essence, a brick in the construction of a communal haven, a sanctuary for free thought, authentic expression, and dignified living. As we embark on this transformative journey, let's remember that the destination is not uniform, but multifarious. Happiness doesn't reside solely in family bonds or romantic partnerships, but can flourish in the sunlit glades of art, the intriguing labyrinths of science, the passionate arenas of activism, and the sacred altars of spirituality. Embrace this plurality of purpose. Walk your path with conviction, knowing it's not a detour, but a meaningful course charted by the inner compass of your authentic self. As we disengage from the falsehoods perpetuated by colonial frameworks and Hollywood-Bollywood machineries, we restore the wealth of our culture and community. This wealth is not measured in economic terms, but in the richness of our shared and individual experiences, the arts we create, the sciences we advance, the philosophies we ponder, and the compassion we extend. We liberate not just individuals, but entire societies, breathing life into cultural artifacts and institutions that were suffocated under the weight of imperial deceit. The inauguration of sovereign living, your courageous first step. We stand at a momentous crossroads, a juncture in history, where each step we take reverberates through the timeline of human evolution. The choices you make, whether to remain ensconced in the comfort of inherited illusions, or to embark on the challenging but rewarding path of awakening, will shape not just your own life, but the collective soul of humanity. So, kindred souls, let us stride forth with unwavering courage. Let us awaken from the stupor of programmed existence and walk with eyes wide open into a new dawn of sovereign living. The era of mental colonization is over. Ahead lies a flourishing landscape of intellectual and emotional freedom. Each of us can be the pioneer of this new frontier. Each step a declaration. Each thought a revolution. The path toward authentic happiness, shorn of colonial myths and societal fallacies, awaits your exploration. Step forward and claim it, for yourself and for all of us.